10, Quincy is joining other Illinois communities tonight in a program that helps restore historic properties.
WGEM's Claire Edlin joins us in studio to explain why Quincy gets to be a part of the now 20-year-old program and how it will incentivize renovations on notable properties.
Daniel and Raja, the River Edge redevelopment zone has been around for 20 years, like you said, and initially started as a way to help redevelop brownfields along the river. Now, as it's evolved into a historic preservation tax incentive, Quincy qualifies. Official with Gredic, the Chamber of Commerce and the district who work to advocate Quincy's inclusion in the River Edge program say that any community that's in that zone will only have to cover 3/4 of costs to restore a historic property while the state pays the rest. Kyle Moore with Gredic says the Quincy Children's Museum and Illinois State Bank are two examples that would benefit from this program.
What's really held them up was that they've been working to get state tax credits. So if you are not included in this program, you have to compete with every other community in the state for these tax credits. If you're River's Edge, you automatically qualify for them. So the Illinois State Bank building would have been able to be started 2 years ago, or whenever they first announced it.
Moore says the next step in the process is to work with the state to establish the boundaries of the district. He says once that's done, they will start reaching out to property owners and talking to them more about the project and how they can tap into those incentives. Raja?
Thank you, Claire. Moore says there is no definitive day for when they will get those boundaries established, but he says it will likely happen during the next few months.